All right. Welcome, everyone. Today is Tuesday, December 10th, 2024, and the time is 7:04 p.m. We will call this meeting to order. Melissa, will you please take roll call?
Yes, of course. Richard Ford?
Here.
Aaron Pellegrini?
Here.
Andy Cabarrus?
Here.
Carl Hubner?
Here.
Melissa Denton? Here. And Pinkerton Student Liaison Fallon Roy?
Here.
Thank you. Also seated at the board table is Superintendent of Schools Bob Thompson and CFO Jeff Dowd.
All right. Please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Board members, in your packets, you should see a set of meeting minutes, just one set this time from our November 26th regular meeting, so go ahead and look that over.
I would make a motion to accept the regular meeting minutes from November 26th.
Second. Any questions or comments? All approved?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. At this point, we will open up the floor to Principal Bernard to give us an update on Hampstead Middle School.
Gotta adjust it down, you know.
Oh, you know what?
Oh.
I did this out of order.
Oh.
I apologize. Sorry about that.
No worries.
I should have opened up the floor to public comment first. So, Melissa, has anyone come forward for public comment tonight? Okay, thank you very much. Welcome back.
Thank you. All right. So the first thing I'd like to talk about in terms of updates from Hampstead Middle School are that we continue to use our flex period as a form of intervention and enrichment in the classroom. Our grade level teams and specialists meet once a month, and we look at grades, test scores in order to place our students in either interventions or in enrichment opportunities. So those interventions include extra math work, extra reading work, maybe even some executive functioning work, things of that nature. And if students are not in need of that, then they have various different enrichment opportunities. A couple I'd like to share with you that are going on for this specific quarter are our 7th and 8th grade flex students. Many of them are participating in creating arcade games for our Giving Games Day, which is going to be on December 19th. They are using recycled materials to create these arcade games, and this will be a celebration of our Candy Cane Coin fundraiser that will be happening in all advisories. We are collecting that money, and that money will be used to determine the needs of what will then be purchased for the Saltbox Pantry. So really exciting opportunity for our students. There is a lot happening in Mrs. Mayu's class right now, lots of building and excitement there. Another example of enrichment would be in Miss Griffin's 7th grade class. They have partnered with Miss Lazaro's 2nd grade class. They actually went to HCS and did some reading in STEAM different challenges, and those students will be coming to Hampstead Middle School to do some more reading with our 7th grade class. So between having intervention opportunities and enrichment opportunities, our flex is really a great opportunity for our students and is every single day of the week. So I wanted to share that. The next thing I'd like to share is that we had our first Q1 Hawk Awards. That was the day before Thanksgiving break, and it certainly was a celebration and my first Hawk Awards experience ever. So super, super fun. We honored 21 students with various different Hawk Awards throughout our ceremony. I would like to give a special shout out to our 8th grader, Sarah S., who was our MC for the event and also took home the Principal's Award for Q1. Also, our 7th grader, Gunnar B., whose grandfather's in the audience right now, he was our Hawk mascot. So really exciting, like he did such a great job, really brought the energy to the event. And I really would love to share that we had the honor of welcoming back 2018 graduate Travis Henry, Cadet Travis Henry, who is now a junior at West Point Military Academy. He came back to school. He shared his words about how hard work really paid off for him and how his experiences at Hampstead Middle School shaped him into the person that he is. He thanked our staff for what they did for him and the opportunities that he gave them. On a personal note, I'd like to say that it makes me so proud to see kids that came from Hampstead achieving at such a high level and giving back to our community and our nation at large. What an outstanding individual. Also, I'd like to share that during the ceremony, he received an update that he got a promotion from being in charge of 30 people to 120. So what a fantastic individual. He actually received 2 standing ovations from our students that day. So it was really a great celebration leading us into Thanksgiving break. And then the last thing that I'm excited to share with you, not that we couldn't sit here and talk about updates from Hampstead Middle School all day, and I do have some student council members here to share some more, but I'd love to share with you about our hydroponic garden that we had here for over 10 years. So I'd like to give a shout out to Mr. Rem for facilitating this wonderful opportunity for our students. We have this winter garden that continues to be an integral part of our school community, combining education, sustainability, and innovation. Together, HMS and our Fresh Picks CAF services have had the longest running school hydroponics lunch collaboration in New England. That was a mouthful, excuse me. Celebrating over 10 years together of success. And if you don't know what a hydroponic garden is, it's a method of growing plants in a water-based nutrient solution instead of soil. And so we have currently, we have bok choy, we have spinach, we have beets. I don't know what beets are gonna do because they're root vegetables, but we're gonna check it out pretty soon and see if they actually produce anything. We have lettuce, and all of this produce then goes into creating lunches for our student population. So what an amazing opportunity for our students to be involved in the production of this produce and then seeing it actually come into their food and being able to see that full circle. I want to give a shout out to 2 of our 7th graders, Mariah Z and Kiana G, who have spent, now they're on year 2 of donating a lot of their time, their free time, to making sure that this system is up and running. And I have a little quote from them. They say, "We are very honored to work on something that is very special to our school and community. Working on this garden is a great way to enrich our day. It makes our day, and we look forward to taking care of our plants." So really well done to those girls, and what a great opportunity for our students in learning. So those are my updates. Any questions for me?
No questions.
No questions. All right. So I would love to bring up 3 members of our student council along with their advisor, Miss Rubin.
Hello. We are 8th grade student council members. I'm Abby.
I'm Dylan.
And I'm Tess.
We hosted our Veterans Day breakfast and we had 75 guests, and our school store is in progress.
We also have our recess rangers. The 7th graders have started working with the 5th graders. We have our active food and toy drive. We have our activity night. We will be playing How the Grinch Stole Christmas and hosting Candy Bingo.
We are working on trying to get Teacher of the Month working, and we're working on Spirit Week in February. We're going to do the door decorating contest, and we're going to make the theme based on the theme of Refugee 87. We're working on the Quarter 2 Hawk Awards and creating a logo for t-shirts for us to wear to our future events.
We also have our giving games with our coin drive and food drive. We have our Boston College field trip for women athletes. We have our senior dinner hosted by NJHS, PTASA Kids, and Mothers Club. We also have started our One School, One Book, and we are reading Refugee 87.
We have the holiday concert, band and chorus on December 17th, and winter sports, basketball and cheer started.
Seussical the Musical Junior rehearsals have started for the shows on March 14th and 15th, and the Hawk Talk podcast is coming out with episode number 4 this week. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all. I'll just say I love to hear how busy, how many activities are going on. It's incredible. We challenged you with changing the culture and creating the culture of the school, and it's pretty clear you're implementing that in full as much as you can. I'll also say I absolutely love to hear that 7th graders are working with 2nd graders. I love that HMS, HCS crossover and giving 7th graders opportunities to be role models to their younger classmates. So great job there.
Yeah, I agree, and I always love when the kids come up and talk, and I know it's can be a little difficult to do, and I appreciate all the work you guys are doing. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
I also wanted to mention that this year we probably doubled in size for student council, so we have 4 advisors working with me as well, 3 other advisors, so there's 4 of us working together, but we have about 70 kids.
Wow.
Yeah, I meet every Thursday morning, and they are busy.
That's
They are
excellent.
really, really busy and very motivated group of kids, so it's a lot of fun to watch.
Love to hear that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We are so grateful, whoa, that was loud, to Mrs. Rubin and the advisors. When I tell you it's a well-oiled machine, you thank me, but this community, it's here. It's always been here. Maybe they needed a little bit of somebody to believe in them, but there's just so many fantastic, hardworking individuals. This group of 70, did you say? Students and student council, they get in there at 7:15. They are ready to go. They know exactly what to do. They break into their groups and they do some amazing things. And I would invite you to come and be a part of it and watch it and give some ideas. 7:15, right? Every Thursday. Every Thursday, come on by. Also, I'd like to invite our community to follow my principal Instagram account. So it is Principal Bernard _ I wrote it over there. It's Principal _Bernard _HMS. So find me and follow me. I'm trying to post some fun things around campus. Thank you.
Can you send that out as a message?
Yeah, it's on my newsletter every week.
Okay, awesome.
Where else, how else would you like me to send it?
No, that's perfect. So
Okay.
that-
Newsletter's
just
great.
check the newsletter and then.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have a new guest with us today. So I'd like to say welcome to Fallon Roy, our new Pinkerton liaison. Welcome, Fallon.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Fallon Roy. I'm a junior at Pinkerton. Just to start off with some old business, Pinkerton won MAC Plaque, which was really, really exciting. And then to follow that, football won the championship. So that is a total of 3 championships that we won this season, which is girls cross country, girls soccer, and then football. Today, the sophomores had were allowed to sit into electives, so they could feel out what they wanted to do next year or their senior year, just to like find their interests. This Thursday, the 12th, the chorus and band holiday concerts are happening, so if you guys want to swing by. The junior ROTC changed their evaluation process, and we have an exceptional rating, and they were really impressed, the people who examined us. Every town was represented. They wanted me to mention that. And then finally, Jalen Pond, an old Hampstead student, won the Hobie program, or she was the runner-up, and Pinkerton is funding for her. And if you're wondering what Hobie is, it is a leadership conference with various activities and speakers in general, and it's just like a leadership opportunity, a leadership little thing for students to go to if they're elected for it. So, yeah.
Great.
Do you have any recommendations for electives?
I loved my ceramics class. It was really, really fun. I was the teacher, but yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
And just to kind of, share with the public and kind of review what your role is here. Again, you are the Pinkerton liaison, so as a non-voting member of the board, your job is to provide us school updates like you just did, participate in board meetings. I did just want to say you don't need to stay for the entire meeting. I know you have probably homework and a full schedule, but anytime that you can stay later through at least some of the meeting, we would just love to hear your perspective on anything that we cover. Also, I was hoping to just kind of have you tell us a little bit about yourself and the things that you like to do, what interests you, what you're all about.
So I'm a part of multiple organizations through Pinkerton. I'm in student council, HOSA, which is Health Organization Students of America. So anyone that's interested in a health occupation. What else? This program called Ashers United, which is surrounded by the concept of mental health. So we do a ton of, last Saturday, we had a event, Crafts for a Cause. So students, or kids actually, came in and did holiday crafts while we were watching a movie. And it was really fun. I was just accepted into NHS, which was exciting. What else?
What do you do for fun?
For fun, obviously I hang out with my friends. I'd go to the gym. That's what I like to do.
Cool.
Play with my dog.
Great.
do the normal stuff. That's pretty much it.
That's
Sister.
I did soccer.
You did soccer.
I did soccer. I didn't do it this year, but yes, that was my sport.
great. Well, it's nice to meet you. Welcome to the board. I look forward to more updates. We won't make you stay for this meeting because there's a fog advisory, so I want to make sure you make it home safely. But before you leave, board members, any questions or anything you want to say to Fallon?
Thank you. Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Happy to have you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So at this point, we'll let Fallon get on her way so she can get home in a timely manner. And thank you all, Student Council, for coming. Really appreciate it. Okay. Moving on here, we will have Bob go through the 2025-2026 operating budget.
Great. While we wait 1 minute,
Of
we'll
course.
let some pictures get taken, and there we go. Okay, so tonight is, I think, a very exciting evening because we are looking for the board to deliberate and approve the proposed operating budget from the school administration. So what we are calling Draft 3, because this is the third version we brought to you, is an operating budget for the 25-26 proposed school year, and that is $38,143,495. And before we, I'm going to turn it over shortly to Mr. Dowd, who's going to just walk through some of the information. It is really a repeat. They're discussions that we've been having for months. I was tasked, so at the last meeting, the board had determined that a reduction of $382,000 would be made from the operating budget. I was asked at the last meeting to present several different scenarios of what those cuts would look like. The board had settled on that $382,000. $362,000 of those dollars were accounted for in those cuts. And I'm just going to give, I'm not going to go through all of the items that were reduced, but I will highlight just a few of them. Of the $382,000 in reductions, we made a $77,000 reduction to the math curriculum transition. We transitioned from a 6-year agreement down to a 3-year agreement. We also reduced $97,000 by taking out a special education transportation proposal that we had included. We also made some reductions to Summer Learning Academy of $5,000. The idea is that some of that program would be parent funded. We also cut $150,000 when it came to the Hampstead Central School septic tank replacement. That was one of a 2-year proposal. Then we also, so at that point, we arrived at $362,000. The board had directed me to cut an additional 20 for a total of $382,000. So in your packets, you'll see the areas where I'm looking to make those budget reductions. And I'll just highlight a few of these. So really, with the additional $20,000, I look to try to minimize the impact, the overall impact, by spreading it out amongst various categories. And so $2,500 of that $20,000 would be the Hampstead Central School furniture replacement. That still leaves a considerable amount of money to keep us on a replacement cycle. HCS experiential learning opportunities, $2,400. And just to be clear, there still is money in that line. That's really for field trips or off-campus opportunities. That is largely parent-funded, and we typically will do a little bit of an offset, but we'll also support students who need scholarships. We are also looking to reduce some discretionary funds in math and science. Math is largely due to the adoption of a brand new curriculum. I'm going to just jump down because some of these are real small amounts, $125, $400, $456. We're looking to reduce an additional $2,500 in Summer Learning Academy. Again, Camp Invention is a portion of Summer Learning Academy. We would look to have that parent funded, and we'd offer scholarships for students who required them. And then also $7,500 in student services. This is for contracted services for a BCBA. So it's a board certified behavior analyst. And the idea is we have a staff BCBA, and we believe some of those contracted services, which are reducing, can also be picked up by our staff person. So in total, I've gone through and made the $20,000 worth of reductions, which equals the $382,000, which is factored in to the proposed budget of $38,143,495. And that compared to the 2024-2025 operating budget, which was last set at $38,938,889, represents a $795,394 reduction. That also represents a negative 2.04 reduction. So I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Dow, but before I do that, are there any questions, comments, or action the board would like to consider in regards to the $20,000 reduction that I've listed?
Any questions or comments for Bob?
Just something to clarify on the 2% reduction, that also includes the addition coming off the books, correct?
The 2% does not.
Is off the total voted budget.
Yeah, is
Okay.
off the
So part of
total
that is the fact that.
is included in that.
Yes,
number,
yes, yeah, okay.
Total operating budget, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. And so if there's no other questions, I'll turn it over to Mr. Dowd if there's anything else that you'd like to.
Yeah, thank you. No, there were a couple things. Nicole, if you could go down just a little bit, what you see in front of you is on our website. You can see that there are major factors, largely by object code, which is a way to try and succinctly, in one spot, identify those areas of increase and decrease by object code. If you go down to the next page, you'll see the object code budget with comparisons to previous years, spend, and that sort of thing. This is sorted by the difference between, on the expense side, the difference between the proposed budget and the current budget. So you can see that, for example, tuition's up $543,000, and it goes all the way down to the bottom. If you can go down just a little more. Yeah, so you'll see like building improvement is showing 0 this year. That was 1558950 last year, which was the amount of the infill classroom project. The next schedule is a total function object code budget, and so you can just breeze through this, Nicole. This is out there for the public. It's on the website under our 25-26 budget link. And so as you get to the end of this, if you in the function object code, the difference is, you can see we're scrolling through like 1410, 1420, those are like student activities. So you can see that the student activity, 1420, 610, there's like general supplies. So it gives you a little bit of a different perspective on the budget. And yep, you can go right down to page 8. I'm going to be asking the board if you're in a position to move the budget forward to the warrant, to approve the budget for the warrant, that you'd be able to do that tonight. Part of the budget is, and we'll get to the last page, which is revenue. Last but not least. Here we go. So that's a proposed revenue for the ensuing year. So it has budgeted 25-26, that's proposed. Revenue is a tricky thing. I estimated it at this time of the year, but I really don't actually end up setting it until just before tax rate so that we can get the best picture of what is going to be out there, so that we can gain any benefit from any additional revenue savings, which we can knock off taxation, so we can reduce taxation. But you'll see that we have unassigned fund balance budget about $600,000. I don't know that we're going to come in that favorable, but I think it's a reasonable estimate at this point. The board does have a couple $100,000 as a fund balance retention, and so that would be released. If that were to be released, that would be $200,000 automatically for unassigned fund balance. So really, it's about $400,000 possibly from operations, but that's really speculative at this point. Looking at tuition, we've been pretty consistent on our tuition numbers for individual and inclusion for kindergarten and preschool. Interest, we've seen a great uptick in the past year or so. And so I've reflected a higher number than previously for interest, but it is so sensitive to economic conditions that although we're doing well so far, I'm not estimating that much for the ensuing years. I don't know what interest rates are going to do. The $122,000 you'll see for actual on that line for 23-24 includes interest for our capital reserve fund as well as our general operating funds. Food service sales, $319,000, that's pretty standard. That's almost a placeholder that I use to aggregate all of our food service between a la carte, lunch, breakfast, that sort of thing. Permanent funds, other local revenue, not too much there. So the educational grant state revenue on line 3111, that's the adequacy aid grant. Our preliminary estimate so far is $3,241,450. The district has done a pretty good job capturing free and reduced students and a number of other factors. So I think that the tendency would be for that number to go down. In a lot of other districts, we've really been trying to chase those factors that'll help bring in additional revenue for the district. Special education aid, also known as catastrophic aid, line 3230. I'm estimating 550,000. That may be a bit aggressive, but I think that is probably a fair estimate at this point. The way that works is that there's a pool set out by the state of approximately, I believe, 33 million, which is divided amongst and allocated amongst all the applicants. And to apply, we have to have costs of 3 times the normal per student costs or typical costs, exceeding 3 times the, which is about 75,000 this year. So any cost we have for special education students that exceed 75,000 can be billed, and we are entitled to that amount in aid. However, that pool is limited, and there were more applicants this year than in the past. So we ended up not.
That's the one that if we had gotten what we got, the percentage we got last year, it would be 231,000 more than what's listed there.
Yeah.
So basically the change in aid has made it so that we're incurring 231,000 more
Additional.
in state and costs that has been shifted from the state to us.
That we're not being reimbursed for.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's fair. State child nutrition, 3,500, pretty standard. Other state aid, sometimes we get state aid in. I don't know of anything right now that we'd be getting. Federal projects, 650,000. That's pretty standard. That's all of our grant money. And basically, I budget that amount annually because I need to budget the expense. And if we receive up to that, that's great. Typically, we haven't exceeded that. And if we don't receive that revenue, that means we're not incurring the expense. So it's a wash. Lunch reimbursements from federal programs, 63,500, Medicaid, 5,000. Medicaid has been another area that, as you can see in 22, 23, we actually had 31,000, which was pretty good, pretty aggressive at the time. We had received substantially more than that in the years prior to that, but the program has really made it very, very difficult to get reimbursement. We just aren't in a district that is getting a lot of reimbursement. Other revenue, in previous years, we may have had a transfer from capital reserve or amount voted from fund balance to the capital reserve. I'm not anticipating those in this revenue presentation. So as you go to approve your budget, I don't need you to do anything really with revenue, but I do want to make you aware of it, and I would take it under notice, and I would include that in the state forum. If you're in agreement with this, if there are any changes, certainly we can discuss.
On the spending side, the proposed budget, delta is the comparison from this current year to next year. So in parentheses would be a reduction, and non in parentheses would be an increase.
Oh, correct. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's I think Nicole will be working to get to the top, but you're saying it looks like a credit on there basically, and that's favorable typically. So.
Yeah, in parentheses is we're spending less, and not in parentheses we're spending more. Yep. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind going back up to the top. Any other questions on the budget that I could answer?
Board members, any questions? Okay. All right.
Board will deliberate.
Right.
And then take action.
Yep. So, board members, after all of the work that's gone into looking for ways to reduce the budget and scrutinizing it through all of the public meetings that we've had, do we have any thoughts, any questions, any comments before we move forward with a motion to potentially approve this operating budget?
I really appreciate you guys going through the work, and I mean, we basically took almost $400,000 out of the budget and found places that we could go as lean as possible considering the current sentiment in the town. And then, again, also we're spending $231,000 more on special education, so basically, you know.
And if I could just add too that, so this is the fourth operating budget that I have had the privilege of working with the board on. And they don't get easier. You'd think, after engaging in an exercise over time, it generally gets easier. It seems to almost be the opposite. and we've talked about all the challenges. Revenue is a really significant challenge. Had the opportunity to talk a lot about that last night at the Board of Selectmen meeting. And I also just want to say that I really appreciate this year the interest that the board has taken in scrutinizing every single line of that. And I want to say that because I know at times there's been a little bit of healthy tension, but this is a board that has scrutinized items down to nickels and pennies. And I appreciate that, and I think that the taxpayers really should understand that I really feel that this is a board that does a very good job of balancing the needs of the children of Hampstead with what the taxpayers in this community can bear. So I appreciate all of the work that you have put into this, constructing this budget.
Okay. So at this point, I will be looking for a motion to approve the operating budget of $38,143,495.
Second.
Okay. Any questions or comments? All approved. Okay, moving on to the 2025-26 default budget.
Perfect. There you are. This was presented at our last meeting, and there have been no changes to the default budget. I will go through and process that we used for that, went through at the last meeting, but basically we take last year's budget, we follow the statute, there are certain expenses that get removed, certain expenses that can be added, and that has resulted in a net decrease for us of $1,298,543, bringing the total default budget to $37,640,346. $640,346, I'm sorry. So when we compare that to our actual proposed budget of $38 million, which we've just approved, $143,495, about a $500,000 difference between the two, with the default being favorable by about $500,000. Provided a summary of changes, and this is also available on our site, and you can see the summary of default changes, and there's some succeeding pages after that that will go into the detail a little bit more on a line-by-line basis and a function object basis. So I'm happy to entertain any questions that you have on the default budget.
The question is always, if the budget warrant was to fail, how much would we have to take out of the budget?
If it were to fail, we would have a budget of $37,640,346.
So how much would we have to cut from the proposed budget?
$503,149. Yep. And if the operating budget failed, the default budget would be the budget. And at that point, probably late in the summer, early in the fall, I would be coming back to the board. You are allowed, under a case, Hampton v. Sullivan from many years ago, and in the case of default budget, the budget goes to, in this case, to the school board, and we propose an allocation of the budget. So we don't look at it and say, well, we had this in this line, in the current budget, and we have the default budget, and we're stuck with that line in the future. No, we get to take a look at it and make reallocations as necessary.
So we could reconstitute the budget to be as most effective as possible when we're cutting $500,000.
Correct, within the scope of the $37,640,346.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments on the default budget? Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the 2025-2026 proposed default budget as calculated by state law.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All approved. Okay. Moving on to capital reserve. So I wanted to kind of discuss with the board I know we've talked a little bit in other meetings, other school board meetings about different ideas. One thing to kind of talk about as far as the public goes is that the voters did vote last year to move $1 million into capital reserve. And this year is a different year with different taxpayer opinions, different, obviously, different property taxes. We're getting lots of feedback from the community. So what are the thoughts of the board on capital reserve?
How much was the addition?
In total?
Yeah,
I haven't received final bills.
but roughly.
Well, we budgeted $1,558,000.
Okay.
And, yeah,
So like 1.5, and we put 1 into cap reserve.
yeah.
Sorry, that was kind of more point of inquiry. For me, I think 150,000, which is half of what roughly what the leach field will cost. And then we could do another 150 next year to make sure that we can replace the leach field. In my head, that's what makes sense, and it's also lower than what we've done in cap reserve for a while. But I do think we need at least half of the leach field going in to make sure that we have that on hand.
And just to kind of expand to the public, to remind everyone what we mean by the leach field, HCS does have a septic system that is nearing its end of life. So that will eventually need to be repaired, and we want to make sure that we have enough money in that capital reserve to be able to eventually account for that. And obviously, if it were to fail now, that would be not so great, but we want to make sure that we have enough money in the capital reserve to be able to tackle that when the time comes. So having that $150,000 would be half of the potential estimated cost towards that septic system.
I would agree with that number. Also, I think, we should need to try to be cognizant of people's taxes, and so dropping that back down to that 150 number, I think, is the right thing to do.
I would agree. I think it's, like I said, it's a different year. We're being conservative. We're trying to be fiscally responsible and really listen to the feedback of our taxpayers. So unless anyone has any other questions or comments, I will make a motion to move forward with placing $150,000 into capital reserve. Questions or comments? All approved? Okay. Moving on to the,
Just a quick question, Andy. So in the past, it's been whatever the amount is over, in this case, 150,000. I'll take last year, for example, it was $1 million, but the first 150,000 went back to the taxpayers. So is that the intent this year as well, that the first 150,000 is going to go back to the taxpayers, the next 150,000 would go into capital reserve, and anything above that would go back to taxpayers?
yes.
Okay. Perfect.
Thanks for
Thank you.
clarifying. I really appreciate that. Okay, moving on to the warrant. So before we get into the specific warrant articles, I just wanted to highlight the fact that we are scheduled for our first annual meeting, which will be the deliberative session on February 4th at 7 p.m. And the session will consist of explanation, discussion, and debate of warrant articles. And eventually we'll get into what those warrant article numbers are. They may be amended subject to the following limitations. Warrant articles whose wording is prescribed by law shall not be amended. Warrant articles that are amended shall be placed on the official ballot for a final vote on the main motion as amended. And C, no warrant article shall be amended to eliminate the subject matter of the article. An amendment that changes the dollar amount of an appropriation in a warrant article does not violate this provision. Our second session will be voting on the warrant articles, and that will be on voting day, March 11th, 2025, here at the Hampstead Middle School. The deliberative session will also be at Hampstead Middle School as well, and polls will be open from 8 a.m. and remain open until 8 p.m. Going into the specific articles here, Article 1 will be the election of officers. So to choose the following school district officers, we do have an open seat, a 3-year term. Article number 2 will be the operating budget. And at this point, I will make a motion to advance the 2025-2026 operating budget as approved by the school district, as approved to the school warrant in the amount of $38,143,495. We're looking for a second on that. All approved. Okay. All right. So Article 2 will be the operating budget, and that reads, shall the voters of the Hampstead School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant for purposes set forth therein, totaling $38,143,495. The next part of the warrant article has to do with the default budget. So at this point, I will make a motion to advance the default budget to school district warrant in the amount of $37,640,346. All approved. So the second part of the warrant article reads, should this article be defeated, the operating budget shall be $37,640,346, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Hampstead School District or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Note, warrant Article 2 operating budget does not include appropriations proposed under any other warrant articles.
Do we need to vote on the full now?
I will, okay, let me get my motions correct. I will make a motion to approve the 2025-2026 operating budget in the amount of $38,143,495 and advance it to the school district warrant.
Second.
All approved. I will then make a motion to approve the 2025-2026 default budget in the amount of $37,640,346 and advance it to the school district warrant.
Second.
Okay. Carl has that second. All approved. Okay. Now on the collective bargaining agreement, Mr. Dowd, we're going to present on the cost distribution items.
So this is a 4-year agreement, and for 25-26, cost is $99,001. For 26-27, it's $64,601. 27-28, it is $32,926. and for 28-29, it is $32,926.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Dowd regarding the HESPA collective bargaining agreement? Okay. I will make a motion to advance the ratified HESPA tentative agreement to the 2025 school district warrant for a warrant article as applicable and with the cost distribution numbers for 2025, 2026, 2026-27, 2027-28, and 2028-29 as presented by Mr. Dowd.
Second?
All approved. Okay. Do I need to read that one? I probably do. No? Okay. All right. Moving on. This would be the collective bargaining agreement with HEA, where we are in mediation. We have no numbers to propose today, but we'll come back to that one hopefully later on. Right. And the next one would be the authorization for special meeting on cost items. So if we are in mediation with HEA now, if we are able to come into an agreement, we will have to hold a special meeting to approve that agreement. So this next warrant article just kind of highlights that. And just to kind of spell out what it says, shall the Hampstead School District, if the HEA warrant article is defeated, authorize the Hampstead School Board to call a special meeting at its option to address the article and the cost items within.
So moved.
Okay.
Somebody needs to second it.
I'll second it.
I moved it, so that's,
What was the motion?
I said
that
so
was
moved, that's a
stated by
motion.
Mr. Cabarrus?
Yeah.
What was it? Was it to move it to warrant?
To move it to warrant.
Okay, I
Yes.
just didn't hear that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
Oh, yep.
So we approved it.
Okay. So,
So you approve it and then you advance it.
oh, thanks. So I will make a motion to advance an article to the 2025 school district warrant to authorize, if needed, a special meeting on cost items as it would relate to any collaborative bargaining agreement warrant articles on the warrant.
Second.
All approved.
Thank you so much.
All right. And we did make a motion to approve $150,000 to be placed in the capital reserve fund. I will make a motion to advance a capital reserve fund warrant article to the 2025 school district warrant in the amount of $150,000 available for transfer on July 1st, 2025. All approved.
Thank you.
Then I will make a motion to advance a capital reserve article to the 2025 school district warrant and appropriate $150,000 for that article.
Second.
Nice. All approved.
Just real quick, this one, I know this is just a draft here, but this still has the $1 million in there, so we just want to make sure that gets.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. From there, I will make a motion to advance an article to school district warrant to accept reports of agents, auditors, committees as written in the 2024 annual report.
Second?
All approved. Okay. Takes care of it. All right. Moving on to the HCS construction update with Jeff Dowd.
Yes, very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Nicole, I think that we may have a slide presentation. for this, so I'm very excited. We're at a great spot on this project, and again, thank you to the Hempstead voters for your support in helping to make this happen. The project, if you recall, was approved at last March's voting session. The project cost was $1,558,950, paid for out of capital reserve. We are within budget at this point in the project. I don't see many factors. Well, I shouldn't say that. Don't see many factors that would cause us to go outside of the budget, but I don't want to say that necessarily. The classrooms are actually in use. So we were issued a certificate of occupancy, I believe, about 2 weeks ago. And yeah, we have students in there, teachers are in there. And I can show you some pictures if we can get the slideshow up. So there we are. And yeah, and you'll see that there's a note, the second to last bullet. Joist reinforcement has occurred on the 40s wing existing classroom, and we're going to, when we're looking at joist reinforcement on 2 other classrooms as well. Building's 80 years old and has seen some significant constant use, and we want to make sure that that building is going to be good for the next 80 years. And so we're reinforcing those joists with metal stringers, and it is a bit of an invasive process. And so we're working on a plan to get the other 2 classrooms done. We had some significant floor sagging in those rooms, not structurally dangerous, but something that if we know about, we should take action on to make sure that it doesn't become a structural issue, and to make sure that, again, that building can last for another 80 years. So, cool. So you wouldn't mind? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So basically, it would be one of those sooner rather than later, so we might as well do it now instead of reopening it in 10 years or 15 years.
That's right. We have a disruption in classes and noise in the building and that sort of thing, and so in order to minimize any future disruptions, it would be good to get those out of the way now. So you can see so this is the renovated first floor classroom. The picture on the left-hand side, you'll see that there's a glass door, and you'll see that there's a dark doorway, and through that dark doorway is the new infill classroom space. That classroom that you see is part of the original 40s wing in that building, and it looks great. It really looks brand new. The room that you see on the right-hand side, if you'll see the door on the left, you'll see a door with a light behind it. Yep, right there. That's the 40s wing classroom. So those 2 classes right now are being used by our student services group, and they're piloting a new program called RISE, and that is taking place in those 2 rooms. So those 2 rooms are already in use. These pictures are a couple weeks old. There is a lot of activity in those rooms, and I'm really happy about that. So if you wouldn't mind the next slide, I'll show you the upstairs classroom. And if you recall, the classroom here has a little bit of higher ceilings, a really nice feel to it. The picture on the left is from the doorway looking into the rest of the classroom. You can see a couple windows. You can see a door on the left-hand side of that picture. That door had to be put into an existing classroom, and so very thankful for the teacher in the accompanying in that adjacent classroom for being able to accommodate us and a lot of requests. I can't believe that this room is done after having it really be just a shell during the summer and all that. We still have a few punch list items, a little bit more to do. You can see the picture on the right-hand side. The guy in the middle is Mr. Jocks. He's a newer teacher to our central school, a very enthusiastic teacher, and he's already in the classroom teaching students daily. So we're very, very pleased with the progress on the project and hope to have the remaining punch list items. We had a couple issues with some of the windows, and we're hoping to have those resolved in the near future and to have the joist reinforcements done as well. And if we can do that, we will be done and complete with this project. So that's that. Are there any questions? Really excited. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right. Bob is going to bring us through the Pinkerton Late Start Committee update.
Yeah, so we held another Pinkerton Late Start meeting on November 19th. And when I use the word we, each of the sending towns has a representative to this committee. I'm the representative for Hampstead. And the goal is to look at the current start time of Pinkerton and look at other viable options. As most people are aware, Pinkerton start time is 7:15. It's one of, if not the earliest start of any high school in the state. In fact, we have students in one of the sending towns who have to be at the bus stop at 5:45 in the morning, and that's really early. And we don't believe that that's best for kids. And so we're looking for a solution that would accommodate all of the sending towns, because obviously the start time of Pinkerton would have, and changing it would have an impact on the start time of both of our schools. And so this is a process that has been going on for 2 years now. It's going to continue to go on. I think what we have learned so far is that making a change to Pinkerton's start time is very challenging to do. And so we are not, the committee will not be making any proposal for the impact on the 25-26 school year. We'd be looking at possibly future school years after that. One of the items that we're looking at is just the feasibility of some type of consolidated busing. Pinkerton is going to engage in conversation with transportation providers about, what if Pinkerton were to have their own transportation? What would that look like? And then what would that do in terms of allowing for a little bit more flexibility of the start time of Pinkerton? I would say that, no decisions have been made. We're going to meet again in February. I appreciate the work that everyone on the committee has done, and with so many sending towns, and now we're picking up Fremont. It just the complexity of Pinkerton's start time has just really come into spotlight. If there's any questions that the board has, otherwise I will come back in late February or March with another update.
Any questions for Bob? Okay, thank you, Bob. All right. Board members, in your packets, you have some policies here. So these policies are ECAF, the audio and video surveillance on school buses. The amendments clarify its relationship with policy EEAA, which deals with surveillance on school property. It emphasizes that audio recordings carry separate restrictions. It indicates methods of notification and includes parents as having a right to view recordings when appropriate in disciplinary proceedings. There's GCP, professional staff, promotion and demotion. JJA, student activities and organizations, with some suggested revisions to remove participation eligibility requirements for non-enrolled resident students, and points to policy JJJ instead, as well as additional language to also point to JJJ for appeals and administrative regulations and procedures. JJIB has to do with interscholastic athletics. There's a suggested change in there to replace the current version in its entirety to expand beyond simply discussing interscholastic teams and to approve connectivity with other NHSBA sample policies. And then lastly, JLCB, the immunization of students. There are some suggested revisions to remove the requirement that the request for exemption from immunizations for religious reasons be notarized. A provision to reflect a 30-day window for proof of immunizations for children of military families under RSA 110D was added. And lastly, revisions clarify the statutory exemptions and add exceptions under the McKinney-Vento Act for homeless children or unaccompanied youth. So go ahead and look those over.
So for the immunization, this basically makes it easier for, if you have transitional students, whether they're military, homeless, and such, it makes it easier for us to get them into school without disruption?
It does, and much of the intent of this change was notarizing that proof of immunization. But yeah, there are federal protections for homeless children and for military families that allow for the expediting the registration process. So we shouldn't create barriers for homeless children and military families. when it comes to any portion of enrollment. It is enroll and then begin the process of getting the necessary documentation to support enrollment.
And then on the audio and video surveillance on the buses, so New Hampshire is a two-party state where the person recording and the person who's being recorded, or multiple people being recorded, have to give their permission, correct? So, but because it is on the school buses, it's a safety security and they're minors, we're able to do that. If a parent of somebody being accused of something on the bus wants to watch the video, how do we ensure the privacy of the other students on the bus?
Yeah, so there's two parts to what you just said, so just to clarify. So the school district does reserve the right to have video and audio recordings, and that is defined in RSA 570-A :2. However, in order to do that, we have to provide proper notice. That's done through our website, through policy. It's done through signage, both on the buses and in the buildings. You'll notice when you come in the building, there's a sign that says it. So that's where our authority resides with audio and video recording. The second question you're asking is access to student records is defined under FERPA, because if a school district is to utilize audio video recording in the disciplining of a student, that audio video becomes a student record, and a family would have access to it. The district needs to consider the due process rights of that student being disciplined versus the privacy right of the other students in the video. We also have to make reasonable attempts to edit the video to protect the privacy of students. But at the end of the day, it really becomes a judgment call. And I'll give you just a random example. If there were a disciplinary issue in the cafeteria that was captured on video and that became a student record, and the video was used as part of due process, and it simply featured other students in there, maybe they weren't very identifiable, the interest would be lean towards the student in due process. If you had a video that was used as part of due process, but really created a privacy right, maybe it's the victim of an assault or some other infraction, then the district, in this case the superintendent, has to weigh those two options. So I know that's a long response. The answer is generally yes, parents would have access, but there are occasions where we have to protect the privacy rights of students when it comes to audio and video recordings.
Do we have the ability to edit the video so that you can only see the specific person, that, like the offender, versus blurring out everybody else, kind of like Zoom calls or something like that?
Under some cases, under most cases, I would say the answer to that question is yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's a great question.
At this time, I would like to move forward policies ECAF, GCP, JJA, JJIP, JLCB to second reading.
Any questions? All approved?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to board comments and correspondence.
Okay, we'll start with the personnel report, and I actually do have 2 items for the personnel report. We'll start with number 1, and that is a retirement of a professional staff member, and that is Mrs. Joanne Mahoney. Will be retiring at the end of the year, as who has served for many years as the HCS preschool teacher. Would also like, under nominations, professional nominations of Jennifer Schaefer to serve as the HMS STEAM teacher. That is at the conclusion of her current assignment, which is the long-term substitute teacher for math, which is tentatively scheduled to end mid-January. I will entertain any questions about the personnel report.
I'll just say in regard to Mrs. Mahoney, my son had her last year in preschool, and she was just so welcoming, so warm. Really brought my son out of his comfort zone. So I'm grateful to her many years in the district and the lives that she's changed as a result of being here.
My son also had Mrs. Mahoney twice and was supposed to have her again this year for a third time, and was a wreck when he found out that he did not have her because he loved her so much, but he also loves his teacher this year. But Mrs. Mahoney really set him up to enjoy school, so it's well deserved.
Any other questions regarding retirements or nominations?
I just want to say again our appreciation for finding great candidates to fill positions, especially in the middle of the year.
Thank you.
I would like to move to accept the retirement of Joanne Mahoney. Thank you so much for your service, and for the nomination of Jennifer Schaefer.
I will second. All approved.
Thank you.
Okay. Superintendent's report for board comments and correspondence.
Yes, so let me go with the superintendent's report just to finish out the consent agenda, and then
Sure.
we can have our board comments and correspondence. So let's start by, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Tomaselli. She's going to talk a little bit about teacher professional learning.
Okay, there we go. So I'd like to thank the board for your ongoing support for the professional learning of our educators. As you know, we implemented early release days a few years ago with your support, and we added an additional half day the Tuesday before Thanksgiving this year. This really helps us accomplish so many of the annual required trainings that we have to conduct, so that teachers can do this either together or in a flipped manner during their work hours. I wanted to show you, so in November, we were very fortunate to have a flipped PD that focused on McKinney-Vento, mandatory reporting, Title IX, and also an attendance procedures update. Julie Barbick was instrumental in helping create those flipped sessions for our teachers, and they very much appreciated the opportunities to complete those sessions at their leisure. We give them about a month to get them done. We have another flipped PD day, December 20th, for an early release. And I just wanted to give you a sense of what our teachers will be doing. So this is a choice board, which you may have seen from, some of your students bring home a choice board for homework. Basically gives people autonomy to choose their own adventure. So we have several areas of focus. We're gonna really look at instructional practices and also AI in December. So the first row you can see focuses on literacy, science of reading, and we have many teachers that participate in letters, and the goal is to get some of those letters, literacy skills into mainstream Tier 1 ELA classrooms. So that first row focuses on some components of our literacy instruction. We have some really innovative new AI tools coming out for schools. These are tools that leverage artificial intelligence not just to spit ideas and answers back, but to really engage in conversations about the user's learning. So I've linked some things here that I was able to learn at the Krista McAuliffe conference last week for our teachers, just to begin to play and kind of dabble in some AI tools. They can generate student activities, they can come up with applications for the content, and then there's just endless bots that they can interact with. So I wanted them to start kind of looking at that. And then the other three areas are around growth mindset, integrated skills, and inclusionary practices that are, recommended from some of our related service providers. As I learn more about their very unique licensures, I'm realizing that some of the PD we offer doesn't really work for our related service providers' licenses. So these 3 sessions at the bottom should all work for their credentialing. And these 3 hours of professional learning will be due before the Civil Rights Day holiday. So we give teachers kind of some time over break and into January to complete these and then reflect back on a Google form about their learning.
I'll just say these are excellent. I'm encouraged to see items around restorative practices and regulating classrooms, and also the inclusion of our students. These are all great.
Yeah, inclusionary practices is wonderful. They really, a lot of our special ed teachers and case managers will gravitate towards that, but it really is excellent teaching for all students.
Right.
We know as we learn more about trauma-informed practices and trauma awareness that children will, transition in and out of these types of needs of accommodations, depending on where they're at. So inclusionary practices are good for all of us to learn about. Any questions? That's it? Okay.
Just like to highlight a donation from New Age Software of 6 office chairs that will be donated to the HMS Library. And I want to thank Mrs. Tomaselli. So New Age Software is actually located in the same office building as the central office. They are moving to complete remote, and Nicole was able to get them to agree to donate these chairs. And it really fits in nicely with our conversation about the budget, because the board had, we had discussions and raised concerns about the cost of furniture for schools. It is very expensive. And the question was asked, can we seek out donations? And we always try to seek out donations, but sometimes we have operational practices, we need to purchase things. But that donation was exactly what we were looking to budget for. So it worked out really well that we were able to reduce the operating budget, and we were able to get the donation. So thank you to New Age Software, and as always, thank you to Mrs. Tomaselli, and we tried out each and every one of the chairs, sat down, read a book in each of them. They're very comfortable. And so I think our students and our staff will enjoy that. Also, additionally, last week, the Department of Safety and Homeland Security conducted an audit of the middle school, and we have one scheduled for next week for the Hampstead Central School. Again, we have a great partnership with the Department of Homeland Security. We conduct a audit every 3 years, which is a best practice. They come in, they review our emergency operation plan, which is over 150 pages long. Then they also do a physical walkthrough of the building. They generate a report. They'll submit that report. We should anticipate that sometime in January. As a leadership team, we will review that report, and it will have recommendations. We'll bring that finalized report to the board. We'll enter into a non-public. And what we will do when we come to the board is identify our immediate short-term action, things that need to happen now, a little bit longer term, and or midterm, and then longer term. And then also identify possible costs associated with that. And then also, if there's possible grant funds out there. There have been 3 SAFE grant funds that have been available. We've had the opportunity to access 2 of those. So it's just something to put on the board's radar. I'd also like to add, while we're on that note of safety and security, I really want to thank the Hampstead Police Department at the Central School. We know Emerson is a very busy road, and they have, when available, been committing an additional officer to help with traffic control. And it's just been great to have the extra help there. And it just speaks volumes, just the continued partnership that we have with the Hampstead Police Department. Anytime I talk to our SRO or to our police chief, the consistent message is, yeah, whatever you need. And I really appreciate and value that relationship. I'd also like to thank our chaperones and trip organizers. I know it's been a while now, it's been almost a month, but we did have the 7th grade ecology field trip. What an amazing experience for our students to be able to get out, experience nature, set aside their electronic devices, and really do some hands-on science. And I do really want to take the opportunity to thank the chaperones, because we're talking about 3 days away from their families. They have to make sub-plans, or their duties and responsibilities, they don't go away. And so it makes for long days, long nights. All of the feedback that I received directly was very positive. It was absolutely glowing. So I do appreciate the opportunity to participate in that trip, but also the work of the adults to make that trip happen. And then finally, and I know Andy's going to talk a little bit about it, last night we had the opportunity to go to the Hampstead Select Board and talk about the school budget. And it was wonderful. There was a great turnout. The room was filled. We actually had to stand in the hallway for a good portion of that meeting. And I won't steal all of Andy's thunder, but we based upon a lot of the feedback we've gotten, we decided to really focus on a couple of key areas. Obvious is the overall number, the operating budget number, the default, but we also wanted to look at enrollment and make sure that we're clearing up any misconceptions about enrollment. Our enrollment is continuing to go up. It has been since we returned from the pandemic. We're expected, based upon the NESDEC projections, to go up 165 students over the next 10 years. Those are just projections, but based on what we've been seeing with kindergarten enrollment, that looks to be something that is trending to positive. We also spent time discussing revenue. And again, I'll state what I've stated before and last night. We have in the state of New Hampshire a significant issue with revenue. And much of that centers around the funding of special education. And again, we don't have to do a whole history lesson, but when the IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, was passed in 1975, there was a minimum commitment of 40% funding for special education. And if you look at, as presented by Mrs. McDonald, 84 cents of every $1 of special education is funded right here by our local effort through property taxes, and only 16 to 17 cents is actually funded by the federal and state government. We have a revenue issue, and that is a huge problem. Lastly, in terms of the presentation, Jeff did a very nice job of speaking about the recent reassessments. And I don't know, Mr. Dowd, if you want to share just a little thumbnail of
Sure.
what you had talked about?
Yeah, sure. I'll share with you as well. So, as I said last night, there really are two things to keep in mind. One, and I'm a taxpayer in town as well, so I get that bill that comes in and it's a little larger. I inherently want to just take it and double it, and that's my new tax rate, and that's not. The tax bill, the initial bill that was sent out townwide equals about 45% of the total assessment. The bill that was just sent out, it's about 55% of that assessment. So the next bill that comes out conceivably would be lower for a lot of taxpayers than the one that we have now. That's first. Second, on the assessment side, it does seem like residential and certain areas of residential were hit a lot harder with increases in property tax values. And I believe at the last assessment, it's possible that commercial tax values were also hit very hard. So they're leveling off a bit, but the disparity just seems great. And I know that the amount that a lot of folks are experiencing for increases in taxes is not really directly, I shouldn't say directly tied, but it's not really commensurate with the increases from the town or from the school. Their tax bill is going up more. And just applying based on what's out there for the preliminary assessments, I don't have the actual final assessment data, but looking at the preliminary assessment data, looking at some of our larger commercial taxpayers, there have been some significant decreases in their amount of their actual tax bill. And a couple examples, one of them that I gave last night, the building that we're in, Mary Clark Drive, the two buildings that are next to and behind the library, the assessment of current new assessment of $4 million, just a little over $4 million, it's an increase of 25%, but results in a tax bill that's lower than last year by about $7,500. There are a number of others. I believe Hannaford was another one that came up. Current assessment leads to a valuation increase, but ultimately their tax bill has decreased by almost 10,500. So there are a number of instances like this. Bluebird, on the other hand, on Route 111, they're, at least in the preliminary assessment, it looks like they went up 68%, so their increase is 20,000 more. But it seems like there's a lot more a lot more of the increases went to the residential, which is resulting in higher tax bills on our end. So even if a business or a commercial property goes up 35%, if residential in large part has gone up 60%, they're going to have more savings on that overall allocation. So an example that I gave last night as well is Hampstead Academy preliminary assessment was 12% higher at $2.8 million. They're for-profit, they pay taxes, but that results in a tax bill lower by $11,500 in the current year. And there are a number of instances where that is the case. I believe another was up 11%, but their tax bill is down $30,000. So there are a number of instances. I don't know how the sausages are made when it comes to the assessment and assessment process, but I think that that has a lot to do. And there's a lot of focus on budgets, as there should be, but I don't think that we can dismiss the fact that the assessment and sort of the disproportionate assessment, what would appear to be disproportionate between residential and commercial, is really impacting a lot of the residential taxpayers, and that's what we're hearing a lot from a lot of those property owners, which is reasonable.
So the quick version is the property tax burden shifted more from the commercial into residential. On top of that, we're going to end up paying more money for Hampstead Hospital because it's state-owned and we don't get to property tax it anymore.
They have done a payment in lieu of taxes, but it's not guaranteed, and I'm not sure if the town is able to commit that revenue to tax relief, or if it just comes in as additional revenue later on. But they haven't been very good about honoring that.
So we may take, if the state doesn't come through next year, we may take another hit,
right,
based off of losing Hampstead Hospital revenue.
We're at the mercy of the state. If I understand, if I remember correctly, the bill that went in front of the governor was not signed by the governor. It had to be pushed through by override. Yes. So for the current year. So just a perspective on all of our residential tax situations, and we do everything we can do to keep our budgets in line and deliver quality education for the students, but this has really hit harder than in years past, due in part to that assessment issue. Any questions?
Sure.
Now's the time. Just I know where budgets and taxes and everything and school funding is like a big issue right now, and trying to think about communication with the community. I'm just wondering, I saw that Timberlane, and I know last year Hampstead Library put on something about school funding, but we as a school board did not endorse it, or it wasn't partnered with us. Is that something we think we would want to do again in a voting year for people?
And I think if you were, anyone that you were to ask that question to would have a different answer.
Yep.
And I think if the board were to decide that that is something they'd like to do, they can certainly take action, and we could even facilitate adding them to the agenda or setting that up for the school board. I would say that I am often mindful of my role as an instructional leader and trying to delineate that a little bit from politics. And I think that there has been some question about some of these presentations. I know this is a not-for-profit organization, but I think as part of the school district sponsoring this, that is something that I'm not really necessarily comfortable with. If the board, which is a political body, were to decide to engage in a presentation like that, I'd certainly facilitate and help set up.
If we weren't going to host it through like the New Hampshire School Funding Fairness Project, and is it something we could put together for ourselves to put on for the community?
It absolutely could be.
Yeah, the only part I would caution is there is a political affiliation somewhat involved from what I've heard. I have not attended any one of their meetings, so I would just caution that if we're looking to be politically neutral as a board, that we don't align or have the perception of aligning with any sort of political party or any politically involved group.
I guess I'm just...
Yes.
Last year.
Yeah, Jeff was there, and
Yeah. Their
They were
yeah.
like, selectmen and stuff.
Their data is nonpartisan. Their analysis could be considered partisan. Yeah. So,
I guess I'm just thinking of, I know I've seen a lot of social media posts about funding, and there's some misinformation out there, and I'm
Sure.
thinking of ways to, it might not be well attended, but at least we can say that we put this on for people.
I mean, I would agree. You know, as a member of the community, I would go to it just to see what message they have to deliver and digest that as I need to, just to educate myself on what they're all about. Yeah.
Just don't know if there's a way we could put that on as a district. And I've also seen people researching the special ed funding and saying they're reaching out to senators, and people are confused about what's state aid and what's federal aid. And I was just thinking of a way to, I guess, inform the community more.
I would completely agree with that, and I think, you know, last night, hearing the comments at the Board of Select meeting, and then the conversations that I've had with community members today, I don't think that, I will accept responsibility for this. I don't think I have done a good enough job explaining the revenue side of things, the tax rate side of things. Probably made some assumptions what people may or may not know. And then also the complexity of it too, is I really lean in to CFO Dowd, because I probably ask him more questions about our budget than anyone else. And so I think after having conversations with people about revenue, what we receive in funding, what the commitments or promises have been in the past, I think it really opens people's eyes. So I do think that we need to do a better job. And I would also say too that, you know, right now we're not at the end of our budget season. In fact, from a technical perspective, the board is at the very beginning of their budget season. And that is because you just approved the budget. And so now I do think there's tremendous opportunity between now and March 11th when folks vote. And not just at the deliberative session in the public hearing, but to have an opportunity to hold sessions where maybe it's not an outside group, maybe it is us, to walk through, take a deeper dive into the budget. We definitely have more work to do. If I've learned nothing else this budget season is, you can never over-communicate issues. There's so much misinformation out there. And I feel like every time I have a 15, 20-minute phone conversation with folks, they may not walk away agreeing with me, but at least we have an understanding of what some of the challenges are. So.
I don't want to put more work on your plate, but I feel like it'd probably be better coming from the district rather than a different organization.
Well, so on the complicated nature, I did go to the New Hampshire School Board Association, like a training, basically a webinar on this.
The adequacy aid?
Correct. So adequacy aid, apparently, I can send you the webinar recording. Oh, you were? Okay. Yeah, so one of the more interesting things was the adequacy was set up in 2008 based off of what money we had. We used to have, hold on, I have it right here. We used to have stabilization grants, which is if you have a big change within your district or your funding, the state would help you out. So for example, if tax rates were suddenly to change, they may be able to help you out with that. Now they've switched to hold harmless, which only has to do with if you have significant changes in the amount of students. So say if we got 20 more students, we could get that. I think it is worth going into it. However, there's 2 lawsuits going on right now that
For funding.
Correct,
state
that
funding.
could drastically change the system. So waiting to kind of see what the results might be.
Some of those have been going on for many years, though, correct?
Correct. Well, yes, but they both just got argued this week, including one of them, which the state has spent over $1 million in outside counsel, trying to say that $4,800 per student is the amount that we should be spending. And one of the arguments was that we shouldn't be spending on heat for our students. Actually came up in one of their arguments, which I would say is probably a weak argument. Whereas the last ruling was somewhere around $10,000 per student, and we spend at least 15. I can't remember what it was, but we spent significantly more than that. So I think change is coming, and I think
I'd like to inform people before March.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Okay,
I don't know.
moving on to board comments and correspondence. Really quick, I just wanted to share, I had the opportunity to attend and participate in the Hampstead Christmas Parade. So it was great to see a bunch of Hampstead students and a ton of Hampstead staff both participating and cheering everyone on and spectating. It's a great event put on by the Hampstead Lions Club. And then, as Bob mentioned, myself, Bob, and CFO Dowd did have the opportunity to go to the Board of Selectmen meeting last night. Bob talked a lot about what was shared, but it was just great from my perspective to be able to have a packed house, to walk into that room and be forced to stand because there's so many people in there, where our school board meetings tend to be lightly attended and our public budget meetings don't have that many people attending. This was a great opportunity for us to, yeah, thank you. Great opportunity for us to educate the public. They happen to be there. Great to be able to show them what the drivers of the budget are and have that significant conversation around special ed aid and the impact of it. And I feel that perhaps people that may have planned to attend today's school board meeting didn't, because they left yesterday's meeting feeling far more educated than when they walked in. So that was just a great end result to that. And I won't take any credit for any piece of the presentation, even though I did speak, but Superintendent Bob and CFO Dowd did most of the heavy lifting and really, I think, opened the minds of the audience. So thank you.
Okay, so I didn't run. I helped run it, but I didn't run it. The turkey trot on Thanksgiving. We had 500 runners. Andy was there. It was nice to see a lot of familiar faces. Very successful. It was a great day. This past Saturday, we had the senior citizens holiday dinner, and that was the entertainment of the night was the HMS choir, and they did a fantastic job. I got lots of compliments from the seniors, so I would like to extend my thank you to those students and the choral director for participating in that. It was great. And then lastly, tonight was the PTSA's Jingle Bell Shop, so I just want to thank them. It's a big job. I have helped with that many years, and it's a big job, but the kids absolutely love it. So I just want to say thank you to everybody that helped with that.
I just realized at the end of that webinar, they were talking about having the local school district inform people. Was that kind of what you were talking about, like how the system works? Oh, that's an awesome idea. It took me a delay of like 5 minutes to figure that out. Yeah, I think that would be good if you did an informational meeting, like a civics class on how it worked without getting into the politics of it.
To make a motion.
No, I mean, you could make a motion, but that is something that, as we go into the budget season, we're always talking about how we can get the message out.
Yeah.
And in a non-partisan, electioneering laws require that elected officials, including school officials, when presenting information, do it in an objective way and not supporting one side or the other. So.
Yeah.
I just had a question about communication.
Sure.
I don't know if I'm on do we have a communication committee? Was I on something? I don't know.
We do have a communication committee.
I think I'm on it, but I don't know what I do.
Yeah, so and I might lean into our institutional member a little bit. No, Erin, I'm actually looking at you.
She knows.
So my understanding is the board had a representative that worked on the municipal side with the communications committee to ensure that there was some information on the school side that would be included on any communication from the town side. And I don't,
Dave Smith did that
Yeah, so.
previously.
Yeah, so there was also like, in the town, there was like a communication committee, but they're not,
Operating.
I don't think that's really.
Yeah, I think it
So my
dissolved
question
after
was
last
about
year.
emails.
So, yeah, so that
of the
would, they
district.
would send out a newsletter and then there would be information about the school. and
Yeah.
things like that in there. So that's, I believe that is not currently, I don't think they have enough members.
yeah, and I think the intention was that you have the entire municipal side, that which would include information about the library and all, you know. And so how do we get information from the schools to residents of the town that don't have children in the school?
So this was what I was thinking about. I know, how often do you send out like a district email?
So what I do is I tend to send them out either the day of or the day before a meeting to provide notice, and then I'll include other items as well, or I'll send something out and that just might be a special communication.
So I was thinking, I now have students at Pinkerton. I no longer receive those from the district, and I'm wondering if our families that still have students in town at Pinkerton could still receive that, where it's about budgets and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I was also curious about partnering with daycares and preschools, like when we do child find, but could they sign up to be on mailing lists for the district as well, so that they're coming in knowing what's happening?
Yeah, that is certainly an option. In fact, if you wanted, even in lieu of the fact that we don't really have an active communication committee, if we wanted to sit down and maybe map out what that might look like, I am all about that. You know, one of the changes that we made a year ago was to set up a certain section of the website that had all of the communication from the superintendent and then also from the building principals. But it is you have to come to us and not us going to them.
Right.
And I think, you know, we've had meetings about our social media strategy and how do we get information out. And I think social media might be the way to do that. So I'd be happy, you know, if we wanted to, you know, get something on the books to kind of partner with what that might look like, and perhaps we could come back to the board consistently when we get feedback. Some of the critical feedback is around communication.
Yep.
We get that from staff, we get that from parents, and so I'd welcome the opportunity to do that.
Well, I have that, but I can't. So I was just gonna say that anybody that you email, they have to opt in. I'm just going into my job now. They have to opt in. If they don't opt in, you cannot email.
Do you want us to be part of the district?
Yes, you could do that.
Yeah.
Opt in, ask people if they want to be part of it, sign them up, and, yeah.
And then the issue, and again, this is a tech issue, and we can bring Mr. Dion into it, is our email communication is done through our student information system. And our students at Pinkerton are not part of our student information system. We use two different systems, actually. So that has been a barrier. It's been an issue with transportation. It's been an issue with how do we communicate with our Pinkerton students. So again, it's something that we could certainly look at.
And I'd argue, I know you just said with it being kind of wrapped in the student information system, but in terms of community outreach,
yeah,
you know, beyond students at Pinkerton, I think the elderly community, people without kids, you know, there's a lot of substantial information that would hopefully kind of resolve or reduce the misinformation if we had that level of community outreach to blast messages out to the community members.
I mean, the reality is if there was enough, you know, people that joined that communications committee, that could get going again.
Yeah.
And, you know, the town has quite a few emails that they
Right.
send out to, like you mentioned, I have emails, I can't, as a rec board, I can't, that's different from this.
Right, but if we were looking at reaching more
But
people.
the town has people who have opted in, so they could, you know, to these emails, so really what we need is
We can talk to them.
join these committees, you know.
I would agree.
And then that could happen.
And I think, you know, if we could target even the second board, and I'm just throwing out ideas here, the second board meeting in January, could give us an opportunity to meet, take some ideas, bring them back. I can bring them back to the leadership team, and we could come back, and that second meeting in January, I believe we're on tap to provide an update on the strategic plan. Perhaps we could talk about some enhanced communication protocols. And Andy, I appreciate you listing all of those demographic groups. There's one group that is really underrepresented when it comes to our job to educate the children of Hampstead, and that's our homeschool population of students.
Great point.
And students who attend private schools or charter schools. Those homeschool students specifically, but even those other groups, they have an entitlement to participate in co-curricular and extracurricular activities here in the school. And where we are looking, some families want to be involved, others do not. But I think enhancing communication will allow greater access and participation to some of those families. So,
great point.
I'm wondering if if we talk to the town, if they can put like a link to opt into school district
Emails.
emails
Yeah.
or something like that. We only may get a few, but it might be worth it.
Yeah, I think it's worth discussing deeper and really kind of trying to formulate a plan and figure out who we talk to get those communications rolling.
I'll send you an email right now.
All right. Board members, any other things to share? Any other questions, comments?
Andy, I just had one more, and I apologize, I should have brought it up previously. I wanted to point out and remind the board, I don't know that everyone who's present tonight had been on the board previously, we did receive $435,000, in excess of $435,000 in additional adequacy aid, which the school board at the time in August of 2023 had the option to accept and add to their budget, or to not take action and allow that to offset taxes. And the board chose at that time to offset taxes and didn't take any action. That was back in October of 2023. That has helped offset the current year tax rate as well. So it's helpful to know. And there had been some maybe confusion about $1 million that the school board or someone had put into a different fund. I believe that's referring to the $1 million that was on the ballot that was voted by the voters into the Capital Reserve Fund, which is where that money went. So I just wanted to make sure that you all were aware of certainly of previous action of the board for no action to accept additional funding, have it go to offset taxes, and that the $1 million was voted by the voters in March.
So the quick version is we got the opportunity to have more money from the state, and we passed it on to the taxpayers.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So they allowed it to offset taxes.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that.
No, we'll take any money the state can provide and maybe offset taxes. So.
Always a good thing.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. At this point, we will adjourn the meeting at 8:52 p.m. Thank you all.